So together in that beast, again, a very powerful message. The presidential limousine, Alaska 2025 is the picture. The American president and the Russian president together in the presidential beast, in the presidential limousine. They now move to the talks area, which has been earmarked, which has been dedicated. Very, very significant, this conversation, and the area where they have their press conference. Whether that press conference happens after 5 hours or 6 hours or 7 hours, we do not know. And if talks are moving forward in the positive direction, it could take even longer. That's a contingency that has been worked out. However, so that people don't have their hopes very high, the American president on board Air Force One had told journalists, if I think he's not serious about it, I will walk away, I will walk out. That's the message. But indications are the Russian side saying it could last 6 to 7 hours. The Russian president has a big business delegation with him, because as far as he's concerned, this is not just about a ceasefire. This is about normalization, or the road to normalization of ties between America and Russia, for money to start flowing into Russia, off-ramp for Russia. This is a golden opportunity. But what does that golden opportunity entail? Intense negotiations, and both are very tough negotiators. As far as the Russian president is concerned, he's repeatedly said that he's come with a clean hand. Even in that dialogue that was taking place in Turkey, they had agreed to certain aspects, except Europe and Ukraine, according to Russia, furiously backpedaled and used that opportunity to regroup, rearm, and once again relaunch attacks on Russia. Russia is being accused not just of that special operations, but of trying to take control of entire Ukraine. Though the Russian president has repeatedly said territory is not his aim, he just does not want Ukraine to be a part of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. He does not want a hostile power at Russia's borders, so Ukraine has to remain that buffer state. It's almost clear from the American president's conversation that Ukraine cannot have NATO protection anymore. There will have to be some kind of arrangement, a security guarantee that will have to be put in place, but that security guarantee is not being a part of NATO or a protectee of NATO. Some kind of a security guarantee that Europe and America together can put in place, but then the conditions, the Russians have a very clear condition. One, Ukraine will have to demilitarize. Ukraine will have to de-Nazify, as the Russians put it. They cannot have a standing army on Russia's borders. Of course, this is being seen as a maximalist position of Russia. What will be that middle ground, especially on territory? It does indicate from all conversations that have happened that Ukraine will have to cede some territory. 1,14,500 square kilometers of Ukrainian territory is currently in Russian control, and that is 1/5 of the country after the conflict started in February 2022. So the Russian president is feeling very confident because he's made steady progress in this conflict. There have been massive losses of life. He's lost his Black Sea Fleet flagship. He's lost major aircraft. He's lost a lot of crucial resources, but he's gained territory. He's in control of Zaporozhye, he's in control of Kherson, he's in control of pockets of Kharkiv, of Sumy, of Mykolaiv, and 88% of Donbass, Donetsk and Luhansk, which he will not give back by all indications. What territory would he be ready to cede or to give back? So both looked up when there was this aircraft that took off, since it's a joint Air Force base, these images that you see. So that's where the negotiations will take place, the territory that Russia may be willing to cede and the territory that Ukraine will accept, because President Zelensky is also very clear that unless he's on that table, there cannot be peace, there cannot be forward movement. When the three of them sit together, Russia, America and Ukraine, that is where this conversation will move forward. And President Trump has also indicated. And I want to once again bring in my colleague Geeta Mohan for more on this. Geeta, this perhaps as of now is the best opportunity to move forward if all sides come with an open mind and a clean hand?
Well, Gaurav, the first thing, look at the body language warm, cordial. They shook hands, powerful handshakes. They both traveled in the Beast, President's official vehicle. So it doesn't seem like they're here with the intent of walking out of this without a conversation. It does seem like the two leaders do want a very serious conversation, at least a forward movement on where they left off, which is in a very very bad place, and a forward looking meeting. So expect something important to come out of this meeting. This is not in vain. This is not going to be a frivolous meeting where you're walking down. I do not think there's going to be a talking down of when it comes to President Trump and President Putin. But then again, they will be reaching the venue. There'll certainly be a press gaggle before the one-on-one conversations between the leaders begin, followed by maybe a delegation, because he has come with a very strong delegation, and so has President Trump. And there is going to be a lot of conversation that will have to do with bilateral rather than Ukraine. And like President Trump said, he's not here to negotiate on behalf of President Zelensky, that Zelensky will have to do that job himself. But he's here to make a serious pitch for a ceasefire and what the contours of that ceasefire are really going to look like. There is going to be an understanding on that front, because a lot of American journalists have been asking him about territory. And he has been in the past saying that there is going to be give and take, that Russia will have to cede territory too. But how much of it? Because Donetsk, Luhansk, Crimea, Zaporozhye nuclear power plant, if not the entire province, are areas that are now in the non-negotiable side of the table. And so these are the non-negotiables. We'll have to see where Russian president is willing to cede territory or give some space and elbow room for conversation or negotiations to really come to a ceasefire. It cannot be unilateral, because even if they
Yes.
do it, Zelensky will continue and Ukraine could continue violating. So it has to be a bilateral agreement between the two countries as well. Having said that, look at the body language. Look at how President Trump welcomed President Putin. This was not a cold handshake. This was not what he did with Zelensky. This is not how he met Starmer. This is not how he met most of the world leaders who have ended up with very, very bitter experience at the Oval Office. This was a warmer welcome. The efforts to go to Alaska, the fact that the two leaders went together, I think they're here with some very strong intent, and maybe that intent would translate into a longer conversation that could have some contours or a framework that could be set for forward movement. If not, this could spell disaster for a very long time to come when it comes to Russia,
Oh,
the United
absolutely.
States of America, Ukraine, Europe, India, West Asia, global supply chains, global oil markets. I mean, it could just be very bad for
Geeta,
everybody. So it
when
is
we
in
look at the
everybody's interest
yes,
for
when we
them
look
to
at the
really move forward.
handshake between the two, it's a very warm handshake. It's like
Absolutely.
a
Look at the body
warm,
language.
yeah, it's like a warm handshake between the two. It's a firm grasp. And President Trump then, pats President Putin's hand a couple of times, and then they move forward and they're traveling together in the Beast. All indications, Sergei Lavrov, Steve Witkoff, they've done their groundwork, they've done their homework, so they must have agreed to certain aspects and perhaps left something for the two heads of state to decide. All indications are we will get a headline perhaps in the next 6 to 7 hours. If it takes longer, would that indicate that things are going even better?
Well, absolutely. And one of the key persons from the Russian side is Kirill Dmitriev, who is the CEO of the Russian Direct Investment Fund, the sovereign fund, but also a special envoy of President Putin when it comes to these conversations. So, Steve Witkoff, Kirill Dmitriev, Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, Marco Rubio, all of them have worked, although Marco Rubio is coming late into this picture as a part of the entourage. But Steve Witkoff has been critical when it comes to the American side. Kirill Dmitriev critical when it comes to the Russian side. Sergei Lavrov right there trying to look at every nitty gritty. So they again, like I said earlier, and I have been saying this, Gaurav, have come with a plan. The Russians have done it before. They are old players in this game. They would not come if they were not prepared. So they
And
know
Ukraine
they
clearly doesn't
must
have
be a
much of an
play of
option,
trying
does
to.
it? As far as President Zelensky is concerned, he's on, as some argue, on borrowed time, on borrowed weapons. Europe, even if it wants to help them, Europe doesn't have the money to help. Look at the problems internally, whether it's Germany or France or the United Kingdom. They'd want to revive their economies, and ultimately they would all be hoping some forward movement here is found. Or will they be very skeptical? These images will embolden the Russian president as they argue he may not stop at Ukraine. Then the future combat and conflict opens up, Geeta.
Well, with the conversations and guarantees or special concessions being made, if at all, would be made for Trump, I don't think it's an expansionist Russia. Although I know most of Europeans or most of Europe would beg to differ. But whether it's Crimea, whether it's Donetsk, Luhansk, or whether it's the move over here right now, um, everybody tries to rationalize war. Nobody should be justifying any aggression, but the fact of the matter is that they have seen threats in their backyard when it comes to the NATO. President Zelensky spoke of it. We can go back, Gaurav, and see it on record that he's talking about how Ukraine is going to be a part of the NATO, of the European Union. We are still to see EU accept Ukraine, NATO accept Ukraine. That is not going to happen because because Ukraine does not match criteria. Now they can speed
Yes.
up process, which they said EU said and promised they would, but all they've done is with that fear mongering allowed a few more European countries to become part of NATO. Now, that certainly is a concern for Russia, but they do not look at all other European countries that are not Russian speaking, do not share the same culture or the same history as a major threat. For them, it has always been Ukraine, which is the buffer state between Russia and the rest of Europe. So they do want that. And I do not think that every time Ukraine has had a pro Russia government, that Ukraine has been expansionist. Europe should be explaining that as well.
You know what
Why
is
is it
very interesting
that
here,
they're
Geeta, if I
expansionist
may,
only when there's a
should
pro West government in Ukraine?
yes, should there be peace or forward movement towards peace, it would make a very emphatic case for President Trump to finally get that Nobel Prize. And, Hillary Clinton, in whatever form she may have said, if there is peace, I will recommend Trump for a Nobel Prize. But if there is
I think
peace,
it was a tongue in cheek because
sure.
she said that she will recommend a Nobel Prize should he manage a ceasefire without Ukraine having to cede territory. Now, this is not an endorsement for the Nobel. This is actually a provocation, provoking Trump, saying that try, I dare you. Go into that meeting and get me a ceasefire without without Ukraine having to cede
And
territory.
that
That's
clearly is
not
not
going to
happening.
that's
That,
not going to happen. But you have to be sensible over here. Should you want war? Because she's calling for that. Do you want war over here or do you want peace? Because maybe the other territories America would still want Russia to give up. But Donetsk, Luhansk, Crimea, Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, I don't think are places that the Trump administration should even consider as an option. That's not an option. So this is
In
a
fact, that's the
tongue-in-cheek
reason why Russia in the past couple
piece.
of days made that surgical push to gain more territory, so that if they have to negotiate, they will begin by ceding whatever additional territory they've been able to get. And that's very typical military tactics ahead of ceasefire. Make that last minute surge, get additional territory. If you have to cede territory, start from there. But just look at the kind of territory that Russia has taken in its control since February 2022. 1/5 of Ukrainian territory, 114,500 square kilometers, active front line that stretches about 1,000 kilometers, including Kharkiv. You and I were reporting from Kharkiv. Luhansk, Donetsk, Zaporozhye, Kherson. So even if they have to cede territory from there,